What if some of the greatest villains from the worlds of cartoons were transported into the worlds of anime and had to be stopped by our favorite heroes like Luffy or Saitama? Who would each of them end up fighting to protect their homes, and would they even stand a chance? Today I'll be taking a look at some of the most popular anime heroes, including Deku, Yuji, Frieren, and more, and picking 3 new villains for each of them to face based on their powers, personalities, and themes. I'll explain how their confrontations would go down, what they'd clash over, and then I'll tell you who each hero's greatest enemy would be. I tried to pull from a wide spread of cartoon eras, covering the last 40 years or so, meaning there will definitely be some pulls in there that will surprise you. I think you'll really dig my picks for Luffy. But remember, it's just the villains who've crossed over into these anime worlds, so Ben 10 and Danny Phantom aren't here to help the heroes. And if you don't like my matchups or have better ideas, be sure to let me know down in those comments. I'll try to respond to as many as I can. Alright, let's hit it. Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece, captain of the Straw Hats and future king of the pirates. He is a walking hurricane of freedom, conviction, and rubber hose cartoon physics. Luffy is extremely simple. He's a pure-hearted doofus who wants to experience all the world has to offer by sailing the Grand Line and becoming the next pirate king. He idolizes his hero Shanks, who gifted him his straw hat, his greatest treasure, and who is also the one who discovered the devil fruit that gave Luffy his powers. With a body made of rubber, or something very much like rubber, he can stretch, expand, ricochet, and bounce in pretty much any way imaginable. He's also mastered Haki, the natural energy that can be used for observation, defense, offense, and conquering the wills of weaker beings. Luffy's world is built around island-hopping adventure arcs that each reveal a new culture, a new villain, and a new moral battle, not unlike a video game world select screen with heaping helpings of humor and trauma sprinkled on top. His greatest antagonists are always tyrants, abusers of power, or people who've built systems that crush the weak. So when inserting cartoon villains into the One Piece world, they have to fit that pattern, each one ruling their own island, each one thematically reflecting Luffy's growth at that point in the story. So let's start simple, with a villain Luffy would have encountered early in his journey, shortly after the Straw Hats entered the Grand Line for the first time. Ice King from Adventure Time becomes the perfect early journey Luffy antagonist, a magically unhinged monarch that rules his own kingdom in the land of Oo. Ice King is actually the kind and soft-spoken Simon Petrikov, who survived the nuclear apocalypse that turned Earth into Oo, with the power of a cursed crown. Wearing the crown over centuries kept Ice King alive and granted him his frost powers, but also drove him mad, capturing princesses over and over again in an attempt to get them to marry him. As a One Piece character, we would find Ice King ruling an isolated winter island far out in Paradise-Line waters, where the log pose happens to lead the crew, and unfortunately, in exploring the island, Nami is discovered and mistaken for a princess, leading him to kidnap her. While Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji are kept busy by an army of penguins and snow golems, Luffy would scale this frozen fortress to make the rescue. Just like in Adventure Time's early confrontations, the Ice King would retaliate with magical ice lightning bolts, putting up a fun fight, but eventually getting slugged with a gum-gum pistol, and immediately pivoting to try and befriend the Straw Hats, because he thinks they're cool and he's lonely, crying like a big baby. Luffy wins in the end when he realizes just how pathetic Ice King is without his crown, deciding to put it back on his head and telling him they can be friends if he lets Nami go and makes them silly sculptures with his ice. There would be plenty of time for ridiculous gags, Sanji getting mad at Ice King because he's stepping in on his perv territory, while Zoro somehow ends up in a one-sided beef with Gunther. But as usual, Oda-style silliness will mask some genuine tragedy. We would learn as the Straw Hats leave the island that Ice King desperately clings to the fragments of the man he used to be, Simon Petrikov, a scholar of the Void Century who accidentally bonded with an unknown artifact he couldn't control. And in classic One Piece fashion, Ice King sails away after the arc, chasing his own adventure on the Grand Line to find something capable of breaking the crown's curse. Next up, I wanted to find a villain for a little later in the journey, Father from Codename Kids Next Door, along with the delightful children from down the lane. They become the perfect mid-journey antagonists, right around the time Luffy and the crew enter the New World. Father is the sinister, fire-wreathed patriarch of the Delightful Children. He is the architect behind many of the series' most dangerous threats, who represents the oppressive, dictatorial version of adulthood that the KND rebel against. And he enforces his authoritarian will with his flame powers, which act very similarly to Ace's Devil Fruit, allowing him to manipulate, launch, and transform into fire. The Straw Hats would land on Youthlandia, an island populated entirely by children, but this place is ruled with flawless, terrifying order. Kids will march in formation, chant slogans about obedience, and treat adults as mythological boogeymen. At the center of the island stands Father's Mansion, a gothic castle drenched in perpetual orange glow, where the Delightful Children serve as his enforcers. In this world, Father is a former world government noble whose paramecia-type discipline fruit allows him to manipulate flames into rigid constructs that enforce absolute control, symbolic of his ideology that childhood must be shaped with a stern hand until adulthood, something that he's decided to enforce on an island of children who never age. When the Straw Hats arrive, the kids immediately dogpile Frankie and Usopp, capture Brooke, who is, to be fair, objectively terrifying, and drag Chopper into a propaganda class. The Delightful Children act as a unit, so brainwashed that their minds are perpetually connected, using gigantic mechanical war robots to battle the rest of the Straw Hats, leaving Luffy to topple Father. He eventually breaks into the mansion and faces down the dictator, whose flame manipulation becomes more chaotic as his emotions rise, forcing Luffy to use both armament and observation hockey to avoid being burned to a crisp. Their fight is a thematic clash. Father believes that children must be molded into perfect tools, while Luffy believes the whole point of childhood is to dream freely without being chained down. When Luffy defeats him, shattering the children's forced hive mind and restoring their individuality, the island erupts into joyful chaos. The Straw Hats sail off once Youthlandia is liberated, the Delightful Children regaining their identities, and Father imprisoned by the very kids he tried to control. And finally, I think Emperor Belos from the Owl House would be Luffy's late-game Gear 5 era antagonist, the kind of cosmic, monstrous, lore-heavy villain reserved for arcs on the level of Wano or Egghead. Originally known as Philip Whitbane, Belos was a witch hunter in the 1600s who stumbled into the demon realm and established himself as ruler of the Boiling Isles, shackling the magic users in a century-long bid to achieve infinite power to eliminate all of witch kind. As a member of the world of One Piece, I can see the Straw Hats landing on the Boiling Isles, an eerie collection of islands shaped like a massive skeleton saturated with strange magic. In this world, Belos is a survivor of an ancient expedition into Forbidden Waters who discovered the Isles and the Titan fruit, a mythical Zoan type with parasitic properties that lets him shape his body into a towering abomination of bone, mud, cursed sigils, and shrieking faces. He has spent centuries spreading fanaticism across the island, manipulating its inhabitants into believing he alone can purify the corruption that he himself created. When Luffy arrives, the crew is split. Nami and Usopp are captured for ritual cleansing, Robin is enthralled by the bizarre hieroglyphics etched across the skull of the Isles, and Sanji and Zoro fight entire armies of half-transformed Titan spawn. Belos confronts Luffy in human form first, delivering the traditional "You pirates are the real disease" speech, and the two clash in a display of physics-breaking nonsense. When Luffy pushes him into a corner, Belos finally mutates into his Titan form, a Lovecraftian behemoth, as he literally merges with the Isles beneath them, the dead body of the original Titan of myth, the entire island becoming his body. This is where Gear 5 enters full cartoon god mode, Luffy bouncing lightning off the clouds in the sky, turning Belos' bones into rubber, ricocheting across the battlefield like a pinball powered by meat and prophecy. They're a great fit as adversaries because Belos' entire goal of eliminating wild magic is the exact sort of thing the world government would do, while Luffy represents freedom and the relentless human will pushing back against tyranny. But no matter how much Luffy wails on the Titan, its black bile body keeps reforming, until a spark of light erupts from within the Titan's heart. There, at the center of the beast, is Ice King, or maybe Simon now. He spent the last 2 years trying to find something capable of destroying his crown, and with the help of Robin during her time with the Revolutionary Army, has deduced that the Titan's heart might be enough. The two magical forces collide and cancel one another out, and in a force predicted by Oda-level foreshadowing, it ends the curse on Simon, and destroys Bellows for good. Having liberated the witches of the Boiling Isles, the Straw Hats sail on. Another Titan defeated, another legend engraved into the world. Next up, Izuku Midoriya, better known as Deku, is one of New Gen Shonen's purest, most earnest heroes. In the world of My Hero Academia, where superpowers are the norm, Deku was born quirkless, and he spent his childhood idolizing All Might and dreaming of one day saving people with a smile. That dream was crushed when he never developed powers, until he proved himself so heroic and stubbornly good that All Might chose him as the next wielder of One for All. At first, this granted him All Might's incredible strength, so powerful that it shattered his body every time he tried to use it. And once he finally managed to get a handle on it, he sprouted a whole slew of new quirks that had unknowingly been passed down from the former wielders of One for All. Black Whip, Energy Tendrils, Smoke Screen, Danger Sense, Gear Shift, and Fajin, making him the most powerful hero in history. Now, Deku serves as a beacon of hope, a kid who never stops pushing forward, who studies every hero and villain obsessively, who breaks his bones every other episode, but always gets back up. His story is all about uprooting the status quo of a world that glorifies quirk culture and creates an over-reliance on heroes, to the point that normal people disregard helping others because they expect their heroes to do it for them. So when picking up cartoon villains to integrate into the world of My Hero Academia, I'm looking for foes who test Deku's morality, his compassion, and the fragile foundation of hero society itself. And the first character who came to mind was none other than Syndrome, Buddy Pine from The Incredibles, the perfect dark reflection of Deku, a powerless boy who idolized heroes like Mr. Incredible until rejection by his idol curdled that admiration into resentment, and he decided to uproot the whole system, create deadly machines too powerful for superheroes to stop, and then stop them himself, and usher in an age of powerless people empowered by his technology. In the MHA universe, I can see him rejected by a hero like Endeavor, and having his opinion of heroes soured for good, becoming a technological prodigy who resents how the quirk boom stratified society into the powerful and the powerless. In this world, he weaponizes support gear not to help heroes, but to prove that they are unnecessary, creating Omnidroids that adapt to quirks in real time, ripping through established pros and causing mass panic as everyday civilians realize technology can surpass biological gifts. Their eventual confrontation would highlight their similarities. Syndrome sees in Deku the same fanboy obsession he once had, but directed at a world Syndrome now hates, while Deku recognizes the lonely child Syndrome used to be. Their clash is more ideological than physical. Syndrome believes society's obsession with power must be burned down, while Deku embodies the belief that kindness, effort, and compassion matter more than natural talent. He chooses to save Syndrome from his own malfunctioning Omnidroid, and for the first time since childhood, Syndrome feels admiration for a hero again. In the end, it's Deku's willingness to understand even a villain like Syndrome that becomes the decisive blow. Not his strength or his quirks, just his heart. But even though Syndrome has a change of mind and surrenders, his message still reached the hearts of the quirkless population, to be capitalized on by a new villainous force, Amon, the enigmatic leader of the Equalists from the Legend of Korra. Preaching about equality and social uprising in a world dominated by benders, he leads a terrorist movement to overtake Republic City and establish a new cultural dynamic where those born without bending rule, all enforced by his seemingly supernatural ability to steal the bending of those who oppose him. Amon slips almost too perfectly into My Hero Academia. In this version, he doesn't use blood bending to steal bending, he presents as a faceless, quirkless revolutionary, the spirit of the earth itself manifests to regain balance now that evolution has gone awry. Imagine the first time a pro hero collapses screaming on live television as their quirk vanishes, the crowd erupting into chaos, and suddenly Amon steps from the shadows to proclaim that quirks have corrupted society. Heroes all over are terrified to combat him, afraid of their identity and livelihood being stolen away in an instant. And public perception of heroes suffers as a result of this, the quirkless rising up and raging against those blessed with power who are supposed to be defending them. When Deku first faces Amon, Amon seeks to erase him and his power to prove his ideology right. Amon forces Deku to confront the uncomfortable truth that his path to heroism was granted as much as it was earned. But as Deku gets the upper hand, it's revealed that Amon is more than he originally let on. His ability is secretly a quirk, deletion, which removes other quirks permanently, but can also erase matter from existence. Using this secret power to his advantage, he catches Deku off guard and manages to lay his hand on him to delete his quirk. But nothing happens. Because Deku was born quirkless and gifted one for all, his quirk isn't in the same metaphysical place as other people's quirks. In the same way that Deku's quirklessness is the reason he's able to wield one for all without his life being cut short, his different biology makes him just different enough that Amon needs an extra moment to delete his quirk. A moment he doesn't get, as Black Whip erupts and restrains him, proving that Deku is worthy of this power he's been gifted. But for the final villain, I think the best we can do is a near one-to-one analog for Shigaraki. Kevin Levin from Ben 10. Born a mutant due to his unknown alien biology, Kevin was failed by society and viewed as a freak, his absorption powers scaring his family in every foster home that ever took him in. He chose to rebel against the world because of this, absorbing as much power as possible to destroy all the normals who rejected him his whole life. In the MHA-verse, Kevin becomes Deku's emotional inverse, a child whose quirk, assimilation, lets him absorb matter, energy, even biological properties, but whose whole life has been shaped by exploitation and fear. Kevin is born with a quirk so unstable and dangerous that heroes assume he's a villain, and villains try to use him as a weapon, leading him down a path of isolation and bitterness. His mutation spirals out of control as he absorbs elements, debris, and even stray fragments of other people's quirks, turning him into a patchwork abomination who lashes out to survive. By the time Deku encounters him, Kevin is a walking manifestation of trauma, his mind tormented by the stolen instincts of the quirks he's absorbed, all the while dedicated to tearing down Hero Society in a tragic plot for revenge. Deku arrives to stop his rampage, and their battle is brutal. Every punch Deku throws only fuels Kevin's strength. Every smash gives Kevin new material to incorporate, and his continuously shifting form forces Deku to use every analytical skill he's ever learned. When other heroes like Todoroki or Kirishima try to help, Kevin only gets more powerful and assimilates their quirks as well. Realizing that he can't keep feeding Kevin more power, Deku is forced to defeat him with a barrage of Air Force strikes, peeling away his layers of stolen power and material. And when he's finally reduced back to the body of a scared and angry boy, Deku does the unthinkable. He reaches out instead of striking. For the first time in Kevin's life, a hero doesn't try to cage him or punish him or use him. He tries to save him. That tiny sliver of compassion is what makes Kevin Levin Deku's greatest enemy, because he's the first one he convinces to become a hero. Just as Kevin eventually became an ally to Ben 10 and the Plumbers, Kevin would accept Deku's help and protection from the greater forces that want to manipulate him, to choose his own path to heroism. Hey, quick pit stop. Do you like it when I analyze cross-verse matchups between heroes and villains? If so, you should check out my other entries in this series, where I pit Marvel against DC, DC against anime, and a whole bunch of other combinations. I've got that playlist right here and down in the description. And while you're there, you should probably, like, subscribe, write me into your will, all the normal YouTube stuff. And if you really love me oh so much, consider becoming a channel member to see my content weeks in advance. And also, I'm just kidding, that's it. Alright, back to the video. Itadori Yuji is the quintessential tragic shonen hero, a radiant ball of sunshine and kindness who never asked for power, never wanted glory, and would have lived a perfectly normal life if the universe didn't force him into a war with the literal worst humanity has to offer. After swallowing the cursed finger of the king of curses, Ryomen Sukuna, Yuji becomes his unwilling vessel, destined to either die young or live long enough to become the apocalypse. Yuji is a pure soul with relentless will and an impossible tolerance for pain, which is constantly pushed to the limit by curses, supernatural manifestations of humanity's negative emotions, like fear, hatred, or grief. As such, Yuji's character is defined by compassion that survives despair, and his refusal to dehumanize even the damned, and the crushing weight that every choice he makes can doom or save countless lives. So when selecting cartoon villains to integrate into the Jujutsu Kaisen mythos, I'm looking for antagonists who embody corruption, spiritual rot, or cosmic domination. Curses in all but name. My first choice operates much like a curse user, a human who uses cursed energy for their own ends. Vlad Plasmius from Danny Phantom fits into the JJK world perfectly. Originally Vlad Masters, he's a billionaire genius and old friend of Danny's father, Jack Fenton, who was mutated with ectoplasm while the two tried to create a portal to the Ghost Zone, transforming him into the first human-ghost hybrid with a permanent vendetta against the Fenton family, twisted even further by his crazy stalker crush on Danny's mom. In his ghost form, Vlad has a plethora of ghoulish powers: intangibility, cloning, flight, energy blasts and constructs, and possession, called overshadowing. In this version, Vlad isn't a ghost-human hybrid created by accident, he's the first artificial cursed womb death painting, or a human curse hybrid that Vlad turned himself into to gain power after being humiliated by a Jujutsu sorcerer in the past, maybe Gojo or Nanami. Now, Vlad's body was warped into a half-cursed spirit entity, granting him a slew of ghostly powers, but all tied to an unstable body. He fled the Jujutsu world, changed his identity, and built an empire for himself, posing as a philanthropist while manipulating cursed energy behind the scenes. When Yuji and Megami arrive on Vlad's estate to investigate a surge of hauntings, Vlad becomes fascinated with Yuji, the perfect vessel, the perfect body, one that already contains a curse far stronger than his own. Their fight is a haunting aerial battle through a skyscraper-filled city, Vlad phasing through buildings, dragging Yuji through walls, overshadowing civilians to force Yuji to hold back, and splitting into duplicates made from ectoplasmic curse energy. But the emotional punch comes when Vlad tempts Yuji with the one thing he fears losing most: control. Vlad offers to help manage Sukuna's power in exchange for Yuji becoming his apprentice. Yuji rejects him instantly, proving once again that he'd rather die than let anyone else exploit his body for evil. When Yuji finally lands a divergent fist amplified by Black Flash, Vlad is exorcised mid-air in a burst of crackling ecto-cursed energy, only for his dying spirit to whisper, "I know you'll lose yourself someday, and he will be waiting." But because Yuji's life is basically a constant nightmare roller coaster, his next enemy is right around the corner. The Dark Dragon from American Dragon Jake Long. The oldest living dragon, he's also the strongest and the only one to embrace dark magic, and has been feared by the Dragon Council for centuries, as he attempted to wipe out humanity and supplant a dragon society across the earth. He can use his dark magic to teleport, breathe black flames that burn hotter than any other, and summon legions of shade demons to serve as his minions. His threat was so great that, like Sukuna, he was sealed away for centuries, until recently, where he becomes a mid-series JJK antagonist, an ancient draconic curse born from centuries of fear, myth, and conflict across East Asia. In this universe, dragons were never literal animals, they were high-grade curses formed from humanity's terror of serpents, storms, and divine beasts. The Dark Dragon, the greatest of them, was sealed during the Heian era by sorcerers who feared he would become a disaster-class curse able to annihilate entire civilizations. That seal finally weakens, and the sorcerer world receives word that an entire prefecture has disappeared under clouds of black fire. When Yuji, Nobara, and Panda go to investigate, they find an entire town suspended in a dreamlike nightmare dimension crafted by the Dark Dragon's domain expansion, feeding on their life force and transforming them into shade demons to fight his coming war for world domination. Inside, buildings are frozen mid-collapse, flames burn without heat, and spectral dragon shadows coil between the ruins like hunting dogs. The Dark Dragon sees Yuji as both a threat and an opportunity. Sukuna's presence makes him a delicacy, a cursed feast that would accelerate the dragon's rebirth into a godlike entity. And their battle is catastrophically dark, Yuji trying to avoid killing the mutated citizens while the Dark Dragon slashes and burns him. And while Yuji's rage helps him put up an incredible fight, it's not enough. The Dark Dragon catches him in his jaws, swallowing the boy. But he doesn't get to enjoy the meal, as Sukuna makes his appearance. Now awakened, he and the Dark Dragon have a legendary level battle, reunited for the first time since the Heian era. Sukuna tears the beast to shreds, returning the favor and eating a piece of it as its exercise. And as his time with control ends, Sukuna leaves Yuji with a present, massacring all the humans he tried so hard to protect, the moment they've returned back to their normal forms. Seeing the horrors that have been brought about by his own hands once he awakens, Yuji makes a solemn vow to find something powerful enough to kill even the King of Curses. He seeks out another King of Evil from an even earlier age. Aku from Samurai Jack becomes Yuji's late-game, near-mythical antagonist, the kind of cosmic calamity that emerges in a bid to put Sukuna down for good. Originally, Aku is the living embodiment of corruption, chaos, and darkness. Descended down to Earth on a meteorite, he was sealed away by the ancient gods because they could not destroy him. When he awakened, a samurai warrior was trained to defeat him, but Aku sent the samurai to the far future, into a world where he had ruled for 1,000 years of absolute tyranny. As the shape-shifting master of darkness, Aku can grow, shrink, take the shape of any person or beast, giant monsters, swarms of insects, use telekinesis, launch flame attacks, fade into mist, create illusions, teleport, and most importantly, is completely immortal against traditional attacks. In the JJK universe, Aku is not a demon, but the oldest of all the curses, brought to life by the fears and hatred of early humans who did not yet have language to convey their emotions. He is the manifestation of pure, primordial malice, a curse born in the earliest days of humanity. For millennia, he has slumbered in the deepest layers of cursed seals, contained beneath the planet by ancient sorcerers whose names only appear in forbidden texts guarded by Master Tengen. When Yuji is sent on a mission to help secure these seals, he realizes the incredible danger posed here. As the seals rupture, Aku rises like a continent-sized shadow, dripping tar-like malevolence that infects jujutsu sorcerers and transforms entire cities into landscapes of living ink. He is different from other curses, more intelligent, more amused by suffering, more aware of his own theatricality. He mocks Yuji openly, calling him a half-born cursed brat, and telling him Sukuna is like a puppy compared to the age of true darkness. And his mockery is effective, as Sukuna takes the opportunity to face this new challenger from an era beyond even his own. The two have a world-shattering dance of violence, using forbidden curse techniques not witnessed for hundreds of years, Sukuna punctuating a days-long battle with his final move, Fuga. The King of Curses stands proud as waves of cursed flame tear Aku to embers. But he's caught off guard when Aku rises from even that, and in an instant, sending Sukuna, and also Yuji, through a portal to the future. Let's say 60 or 70 years from now, right into the events of JJK Modulo. Back in the past, Aku only gets a few moments to enjoy his victory as a slash cuts through time and space, and outsteps the man he just sent away. Trapped in the future for 50 years, Yuji didn't age a day, but sharpened his jujutsu and curse technique into the most powerful force on the planet. With a single stroke of his hand, Aku is exorcised into thousands of tiny flitters of black smoke. But whether this is Yuji, Sukuna, or someone completely new, Aku doesn't last long enough to find out. Moving on to something a little lighter, Saitama, the One Punch Man, is the ultimate paradox of shonen power scaling. A hero who has achieved the dream every protagonist strives towards at the beginning of his story, only to discover that unlimited strength is crushingly boring. His world is a playground where tragedy sits side by side with slapstick, where apocalypse-level threats are treated with the same emotional weight as discounted groceries, and where Saitama's greatest enemy is his own numbness, and maybe the Season 3 animation. His powers are simple. He's got unlimited strength, speed, and durability. He can't fly, but he can jump basically as far as he needs to. He's not very bright, and usually doesn't understand what's going on, but that almost never matters because he's just that busted. He wanders through life searching for something, anything, capable of stirring genuine excitement within his heart. So, when introducing Western cartoon villains into the One Punch Man universe, they must blend into its absurd tone while also challenging Saitama in ways he's not accustomed to. Irritation, annoyance, existential absurdity, and eventually maybe some emotional resonance. First up, Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb, a goofy mad scientist obsessed with conquering a small subsection of the continental US, specifically the tri-state area around Danville. He has a cartoonishly ridiculous backstory where every element of his life went as awfully as possible. That said, he's not really a bad guy. He's petty and seeks revenge, but he's also a pretty good dad, and is mostly just seeking personal fulfillment, never actually hurting anybody with his ridiculous inventions or schemes. And usually, those schemes are either foiled by Perry the Platypus, or somehow magically whisked away by whatever Phineas and Ferb were doing that day, unbeknownst to either of them. He integrates into the OPM universe as an independent, obscure, E-class villain, whose bizarre inventions periodically cause low-level chaos that the Hero Association categorizes as irritating but harmless. Living in a crooked tower in City J, constantly failing to conquer his neighborhood using machines like the Annoyanator, Laundryanator, Stop Stepping on My Lawninator. The joke is that neither he nor Saitama realizes that they have been annoying each other for months. Doofenshmirtz keeps blaming the destruction of his inventions on a rogue bald eagle, never realizing it's Saitama swatting them out of the sky without noticing. Meanwhile, Saitama never sees Doofenshmirtz directly, he just experiences the fallout. His air conditioning suddenly reversing airflow, his hero suit covered in stray glitter particles from the Sparklinator, his grocery bag teleporting away mid-walk. Their rivalry only becomes clear when they finally interact, Saitama lazily punching the Indestructible-inator out of orbit while he's beating up a different bad guy in the upper atmosphere, and Doofenshmirtz following him back to his apartment, earnestly thanking the mysterious bald superhero for testing his invention's durability. Of course, Saitama would cluelessly accept the compliment, thinking Doofenshmirtz is the new AC repairman, and Doof chooses to fix it while he's there out of gratitude. Somehow, despite the fact that they've been unknowingly torturing each other for months, they become friends. Totally stupid, totally harmless. Next, a much more vindictive but equally dumb villain, Garrett Bobby Ferguson from Regular Show. Also known as GBF, he is a giant floating human head with tiny arms and legs and no body. An intergalactic celebrity gamer, he's incredibly arrogant and believes he is the best arcade cabinet game player in the universe. He's also a sore loser and a cheater, well known for guilt-tripping Mordecai and Rigby into letting him win a game of Broken Bones by lying about having a wife. Oh, and when he lost, he got so mad that he exploded. He's very silly in concept, which makes him perfect for One Punch Man. GBF enters the story attending a Hero Association charity Game Master Tournament, a massive event meant to raise funds for rebuilding cities destroyed in collateral battles. The contestants include heroes, civilians, pro gamers, and one mysterious cosmic entity, GBF himself, a floating, enormous, sweaty head from the arcade realms, who is famous across galaxies for crushing opponents in high-stakes video game duels. GBF arrives on Earth seeking to defeat King, Saitama's friend and secretly powerless S-Class hero, who agreed to enter the tournament to help increase its popularity. King is also quite the gamer, and the public assumes his incredible skills are just due to his sharpened skills as a top hero, not silently built over decades of an otaku lifestyle. Of course, the tournament reaches a fever pitch in the finale, King versus GBF, with booming commentary, sponsorships, over-the-top anime reactions, and as things come down to the wire, GBF about to lose, he decides to cheat, greasing the controls just as King steps up to play. King totally fumbles, and the crowd is speechless, their hero unexpectedly losing to the giant-headed space jackass. And because he's too shy, King doesn't have any words to say to explain the cheating. Except, Saitama is there too, only because Genos forced him to participate in a smaller side event. When Saitama tries his hand at a game and immediately dies due to lag, he rage quits, throwing the controller down with such force that it knocks over GBF standing nearby, revealing to everyone the grease he used to cheat. The crowd turns on GBF, hailing King as a noble hero who won't make excuses even when the victim of cheating. GBF explodes into goo out of rage, and Saitama goes home early, unknowingly the hero, but swearing off video games for good. And for my final Saitama villain, I went with the Cluster from Steven Universe, a gigantic artificial gem fusion made from thousands of gem shards and trapped beneath the Earth's crust. It's a tremendous geo-weapon crafted by the Diamonds, a collection of countless souls all forcibly fused together and transformed into a weapon against their will. The Cluster slumbers underground, waiting to be awakened and used to initiate destruction. In the OPM universe, the Cluster was buried deep beneath the Earth's crust by an ancient alien empire long before Saitama was born, and is classified as an extinction-level threat by the Hero Association, a being whose emergence would shatter the planet, vaporize continents, and release psychic screams from millions of broken, tormented minds. Earth's greatest heroes, Blast, Tatsumaki, Flashy Flash, and Drive Knight, they all struggle just to get close to its immense geothermal pressure as earthquakes ripple across the globe. But the real horror is that the Cluster is alive. The S-Class heroes are trying to kill it, unbeknownst to them that the Cluster doesn't even want to be there, to be threatening our world. It's not a monster that has malice and wants conquest. It's a ghostly chorus of lonely, fragmented beings begging for release. As the heroes fall one by one to the heat and unrelenting swarm of crystalline fists, Saitama wanders down a crevice outside his apartment to see what's causing these earthquakes. But as he descends into the Earth's mantle, he hears voices trembling with fear and grief, instead of the growling monsters that he was expecting. For the first time in a long time, Saitama doesn't feel bored, he feels devastated. He realizes the Cluster isn't trying to destroy the world, it's trying to scream out for help after millennia of silence. And when he makes it to the core, in a rare moment of sincerity, Saitama doesn't punch it. Instead, he places his hand on the Cluster's glowing surface, letting it feel, for the first time, a presence strong enough to hold its agony without being destroyed. The Cluster, sensing his overwhelming stability, slowly calms down, its psychic storm easing as it drifts into a dormant, peaceful state deep beneath the Earth. Saitama picks up the unconscious bodies of the S-Classes and returns to the surface, quiet and thoughtful, reminded that maybe his overwhelming power can make him more human, not less. But our final hero isn't human at all. She's an elf. Frieren, the Slayer of Demons, is a wanderer at the edge of eternity, an elf whose lifespan eclipses centuries. She has watched kingdoms crumble, heroes die, cultures rise and fade like swirling dust motes in a sunbeam. Her story is one of quiet, melancholic reflection. After joining a band of heroes and slaying the Demon King together, she didn't properly appreciate the 10 years they spent together, until now, decades after 2 of their deaths. She faces the loneliness of immortality, the bittersweet ache of memory, and the slow rediscovery of what it means to value fleeting human connection, all while fighting dragons and demons with giant magic lasers. I want the villains I introduced for Frieren to be magical or demonic in nature, but also to play off her themes of discovering humanity and cherishing the present and reflecting on the past. I want them to confront the timelessness that she embodies in a world that's old and steeped in unknown lore and mystery. My first pick is the Beast from Over the Garden Wall, the terrifying and mysterious monster that stalks the woods of the unknown, the unexplained place where souls wander between life and death. breath. The beast travels around, transforming victims who lose the will to go on into Edelwood trees, ultimately adding their souls to his lantern. He can cast a black shroud of darkness at will, and even speaks directly to his victims, tricking them into willingly submitting to his demands and forfeiting their lives. In this world, he becomes a folk legend embedded deep in the ancient northern woods, between the land of the living and the land of the dead. A creature older than kingdoms and even recorded language, a shadowy figure whose presence is felt in the rustle of dead leaves and the flicker of lantern light on long winter nights. When Frieren, Fern, and Stark enter these woods, they notice the unnatural quiet, the creeping darkness that refuses to yield to Frieren's light spells, and the way their breath seems to hang too long in the air. The beast stalks them with whispers, illusions of Himmel, Hyder, and Eisen walking among the dark trees. Stark succumbs to the lantern's lure, believing he hears his father's voice begging him to stay. Fern sees herself grow old and alone, abandoned by time. They both begin to transform into Edelwood. This is when the beast appears, and as Frieren's Zoltrak has no effect on him, he offers her a choice. Lose her protégés forever, or save their souls by placing them in his lantern. But Frieren is far too wise to be fooled by this sort of trick, realizing the lantern doesn't hold the souls of the innocent, but of the beast himself. Blowing it out with a simple wind spell, the beast crumbles away to dust, and Stark and Fern are saved from their cursed fate to continue their journey together again. Next up, we have the Core from Amphibia, a gigantic hive mind of the greatest thinkers from the entire history of the magical frog world, who silently manipulated history and puppeteered King Andreas from beneath Newtopia Castle, and led a campaign to invade the Earth and conquer humanity. The Core integrates into Frieren's world as a massive, subterranean collective consciousness buried beneath a ruined empire, a magical super-intellect composed of the preserved minds of ancient sorcerers, tyrants, visionaries, all of a long-dead amphibious race. In this setting, the Core is the remnant of a civilization that tried to escape mortality by fusing their consciousnesses into one arcane machine, hoping to preserve their wisdom and will for eternity. What remains is an emotionless, calculating entity that views individuals as data points and memories as resources to harvest. When Frieren's party descends into the labyrinth beneath the ruins to investigate strange magical disturbances, they discover the Core's mechanical tendrils weaving through the stone, pulsing with eerie light. It attempts to assimilate Frieren first, believing her mind, which is laden with thousands of years of spellcraft, would be the perfect keystone to upgrade itself into a godlike overseer. The Core traps her inside a psychic construct, forcing Frieren to relive centuries of memories at accelerated speed, cataloging everything from her battles to her quiet moments of grief to her treasured smiles with Himmel and her new fondness for Fern's stubborn determination. But the Core makes a fatal miscalculation. It believes memory is data, not emotion. As it tries to overwrite her mind, Frieren fights it with the meaning behind her memories, the love she carries, the regret that she cherishes, the promises she still intends to keep. While Fern and Stark battle the mechanical body of the Core, Frieren tears through the psychic prison, shattering its identity matrix with a spell supercharged by her deeply buried emotions. As the Core collapses, alarms scream across the ruins, because its dying thrash awakens something sealed deep within its systems. The power source that kept the mind web alive for centuries. Something the ancient civilization once begged the Core to contain. A triangle-shaped crack opens in the vault beneath the ruins, releasing a being of impossible geometry and madness into the world. Frieren's final villain, Bill Cipher. The true villain of Gravity Falls, Bill Cipher is a magical dream demon from the second dimension, Euclidia, a place that Bill himself destroyed 1 trillion years ago, before manipulating the events of Gravity Falls from behind the scenes, working to open the portal keeping him trapped and invade the third dimension, spreading a hell of unexplainable travesties, because he finds the suffering of others to be peak comedy. As an extra-dimensional being, his powers include a whole slew slew of reality-warping nonsense, and he erupts into Frieren's world like a cosmic infection. The moment the core's restraints fail, reality convulses, folding and flickering as Bill drifts out in a blaze of neon light and ear-splitting laughter. In this universe, Bill is not a demon from another dimension, but an eldritch aberration from a forgotten era before magic stabilized. A being of pure chaos who once attempted to rewrite the fundamental laws of mana. The ancient mages sealed him away, but the core, desperate for ascension, kept Bill imprisoned as a power source and last resort, never daring to tap into the nightmare that is his knowledge. Now freed, Bill wastes no time twisting the region into a surreal nightmare. Mountains ripple like water, skies fracture into kaleidoscopes, and villages transform into absurd parodies of themselves. Fern and Stark find their bodies warping uncontrollably, their thoughts echoing in wrong voices, while Frieren realizes Bill is dissecting magic itself. Bill sees Frieren as a curiosity, an immortal mage who carries the accumulated knowledge of centuries, whose memories and emotions are ripe material for experiments in his cosmic absurdity. He tries to drag her into a psychic bargain, offering to fix her loneliness, to resurrect Himmel as a puppet made of stars and laughter, to freeze Fern's age so she never dies. And these are temptations Frieren would have fallen for centuries ago, but not now. What follows is the most bizarre battle of Frieren's life, her spells distorting into cartoonish sigils, and Bill turns her incantations into punchlines. But as the fight continues, it becomes clear how Bill was defeated before. Magic follows the conceptions of the caster, focused by imagination and, most importantly, visualization. As a being with an impossible two-dimensional perception of the world, Bill's magic is impermanent. The effects of his attacks revert back to normal over time, and understanding this, Frieren takes advantage, playing dead long enough for her body to revert to normal and land the final blow, using magic she hadn't unleashed since her battle with the Demon King. It's sort of poetic. Bill is hedonism incarnate, a living id that chases his base desires, but it's all impermanent, while Frieren represents that which lasts, which perseveres. The truest thing in this world are bonds. They last forever, even after death. It's that thought that powers her final spell, shattering the Dream Demon into shards of glittering glass. Stay frosty.